The Short Coat Podcast is a proud member of the MedEd Media Network. Inspiration, information, and guidance on your journey to medical school and beyond at mededmedia.com.
Meandering in the margins of medicine, it's the Short Coat Podcast.
Weird news,
fresh views,
helpful clues, and interviews.
By students, for students.
Subscribe to our weekly show at theshortcoat.com.
Welcome back to the Short Coat Podcast, the show that gives you an honest look at medical school, a production of the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. I'm Dave Etler. But what's really important, pay attention, listeners. Pay attention. What's really important to my co-hosts on today's show. Never in the history of this podcast has there been a more intelligent, more compassionate, more collaborative, more organized, purposeful, reliable, self-directed, and open-minded group of medical student co-hosts. A prime example of these traits, which I picked out of 317 positive character traits that I found on some random website, is M2 Nicole Hines.
What's up, nerds?
Say hello to a top-notch MD PhD student, Sahaana Arumugam.
Hi, guys.
And over here, we've got her intelligence is matched only by her stress level. It's MD PhD student Riley Behan Bush.
Hello.
And joining us for the first time, sort of all the way from Shanghai, China, is M1 Mao Song Ye.
Yep.
Did I do it?
Yeah, I go by Mao in medical school though, so that's perfect.
Hello, everybody. I was, you've probably heard, I think you said you listened to the show and you've probably heard me screw it up before, so.
No, that was perfect pronunciation. I appreciate it.
Dave, you messed up my last name on the first time I was on the show.
I probably just messed it up now.
No, you did it great. Well, he was like, we spent the first 5 minutes when I showed up being like, hey, it's Behan, not Behan, and the moment the show turned on. Maybe you edited it out.
I think I just said Behan.
I think did you just say Behan?
I think I just now said Behan.
You did. Rude.
I could only correctly pronounce one person's name.
No, that's true.
Show.
I'm willing. It's so funny.
Well, I'm glad it was Mao.
It has happened my entire life.
I want to welcome him to the show. And, so I put all of my energy. I've been rehearsing I've been rehearsing your name for days.
We're not special. We're here all the time.
But unfortunately, I only have so many brain cells.
Fair enough.
That's okay. I'm fine. Okay. I'm fine to be the brain cell that doesn't make it.
Okay.
Pruned out.
Mal, welcome to the show. I think you got your chemistry PhD at the University of Iowa before joining us here at the Carver College of Medicine.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
And before that, as I said, you came to us from Shanghai. So how long before you came here did you live in Iowa?
Live in Iowa before I came.
Did you come right from China to Iowa?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so it was direct transition. Yep.
Okay. I bet you can't speak for all Chinese people.
No.
Who come to the U.S. I don't want to put you under that much pressure. Who come to the U.S. to study, but why did you choose a U.S. school instead of a Chinese one?
That's a good question. So I went to a really good college in China. I don't want to brag about it, but
you can brag. You have a PhD.
You can brag about it.
Literally brag about it.
But yeah, so I felt like I wanted more challenge. Also, I grew up with this like Western. I grew up in Shanghai, which is a huge city. I had all the Western culture influence. I guess I liked it. It's interesting to me. Yeah. So that's why, when I also got a master's degree in China as well. Mm-hmm. So I went to graduate school there, like classmates in my labs, they went to Japan, which is closer to China. But I felt like I was attracted to more Western culture. Mm-hmm. So I decided to go all the way to the other side of the world.
Was there any culture shock for you at all? Or was it just like, oh, I know what this is about?
I don't know. Like people say culture shock when that really means, I guess. I was fine. Food-wise, I always like everything. Burgers, Chinese food, whatever. So was not difficult for me. Like talking to people, Iowa, Midwesternized, so was not shocked to me either. Okay. So
interesting.
Yeah, I didn't feel like cultural shock.
So there wasn't anything puzzling about America or Iowa compared to it. Like you were like, was there anything where you're like, why is this a thing?
I don't recall like I ever thought that like that. You know, I had to practice my English. That was like probably one of the
Sure.
hardest obstacles.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I'm glad all of you are here.
Thanks, Dave.
I don't want to leave any of you out. I'm glad all of you are here. I've already left out my ability to pronounce your name, so I
That's okay.
don't want to leave the rest of you out. I'm glad that you're here. Shortcoats, you can ask us anything about medical school you like by calling us at 347-SHORT-CT and leaving a message, or emailing us at theshortcoats@gmail.com. I did not get any questions, though. This is a problem.
No questions?
I know.
Wow.
I didn't get any questions, so I went to Reddit and I found some
Well,
questions.
there's plenty of questions on there.
I found some questions from the official mega thread for incoming medical students. Maybe you guys can help answer these questions.
I would be happy to.
And you know, just give a little advice, because people are going to come here soon. It's
I'd be
it's
happy
summer.
to. But only if they have a 99% MCAT score and also have a 4.32 GPA and every other
All right.
thing that Reddit tells you have to have going into medical school.
I gotta go.
If you
I'm gonna need to know their credentials. I'm gonna need to know everything, because that's what Reddit always has taught me is if you're not the top, don't even try.
we might need to go with the honor system here. So
Okay.
if your MCAT doesn't and your GPA don't, you know, reach those thresholds, listeners, hey, you're gonna have to go find another medical school podcast to listen to.
Yeah, we're really hardcore here.
Yeah.
If you have not solved cancer, you're out. Like
Yeah.
if you have not done 10 years of research,
If you don't
before
have
this,
if you don't have 5 first author publications,
Oh my God.
you're done.
if you don't, what are some other things? If
If you're not like associated with a Nobel laureate, like don't even try. Like if your mentor is not like out here winning awards left and right, you're done. Like
Yeah. if you got a letter of recommendation from just a physician,
don't even try.
I mean, get out. None of that's true, listeners.
None of that's true.
You know that's not true.
But if you've been on Reddit, you might think it's true.
You know that's not true.
We're not Reddit. We're
could-
better.
Look,
We're better.
I'm going to level with you. I could get into medical school. Dave Etler could get into medical school. I promise you that. Could I stay? I don't know if I could. I have a terrible memory.
You could work on that.
What do you mean you could work on that?
I think you can work on that, right?
How do you work on
It's
that?
like a skill.
It's like a skill.
muscle. You can like
I've
work
had 50
it out.
I've had almost 52 years. I've had exactly 52 years to build up this skill.
How often are you
Is
using
today your
memory
birthday? Is
these
that why you're
days?
saying exactly 52 years?
Okay, 52 years plus a few weeks.
I would just want to make sure like
You don't
today
remember
wasn't
the
your
exact
birthday.
number
We
of
didn't
days.
say
It
That would be
something.
such a sly way to tell people that it's your birthday. It's been exactly 26 years, and I feel
52 years
Exactly.
plus 4 weeks.
okay.
Okay.
Well, for the record, all those things I was saying do not count, and that
Yeah.
is the only thing you read on Reddit and/or Student Doctor Network.
Yeah.
Sorry if we're sponsored by either of them.
We are not.
Cool. I said it, and I was like, oh no,
We are.
because
We are
Reddit's throwing big money at med student podcasts. I'll reach out. Don't worry.
Yeah, so maybe you guys can help answer these questions. So let's start with this one. How do you take notes? I swear every medical student on YouTube or social media takes either color-coordinated handwritten notes or uses some intricate Notion dashboard. This can't be realistic. So how do you actually do it? What system do you use?
First of all, I don't know what a Notion dashboard is.
I don't either.
So
I was hoping it was
that's not
something
the
you... Yeah.
So if we don't know what it is, nobody's doing it.
You're closer, Mao,
Yeah.
to
How do you
the
take
M1 year. What did you do? How did you take your notes? How did you memorize?
Memorize, to be honest, one trick I've found is to quiz yourself just repeatedly. That's how you remember stuff. Like the way I used to read stuff that doesn't help me memorize. Yeah, just keep quizzing yourself and you'll memorize more.
Mm-hmm. What about you guys? What do you...
I think everyone does this so differently. I've heard a lot of people, again, just like in the world of like debating how best to study. A lot of people will say like taking notes on PowerPoints is worthless. I wholeheartedly disagree. As a person who's got a very scattered brain, if I'm not doing something in a class, I can't just like sit there and like look at the professor and then absorb all the information. So for me, I would actually put the PowerPoints onto, I use Notability. You could use GoodNotes. You could use, what are the other ones?
I don't know. I used a free app called PDF Expert, and I would just write in the margins.
Yeah, just write in the margins. And then I would just like try to synthesize what the professor was saying. Usually all the things they're saying are on the notes. So it'll just be me adding like little snippets that they might not have added to the notes, or ways that I can resynthesize the information and that make more sense in my brain. Was that the best way? I don't know. It worked for me. So
you're still here.
I'm still here. They didn't kick me out yet.
Unlike the hypothetical med student Dave Etler. Yeah, I feel like that's a very common way. I mean, people really depend on the PowerPoint, getting the slides in advance from the professors. And when they can't get them for some reason, they're thrown into chaos.
Do you guys do like Anki or flashcards like during class? Because I know that's another way.
During class?
Like people will make the flashcards while they're in lecture.
No, I could not do that.
And then like that is their lecture time. They're like half paying attention, but they're using
just
that
using lecture time as a moment
like creation of flashcards. I would see people do that. So I'm a lecture goer.
Okay.
I think this question always comes up around orientation. And the sense I always get when people are super anxious asking this is they forget that they've already finished a degree where they studied and had success. And I feel like that would be my first part of advice, would just to be do what you know how to do.
And then make adjustments.
And then build off of that with advice from classmates, learning specialists. We have one in our counseling center. Like they'll have sessions on how to study. Go attend those things if you think you don't get it, but you do at this point have something there that you can build off of.
The one advice that I would say change immediately was one that I had to change immediately, is that I went from in undergrad, I would like take all my notes. I would never like put the PowerPoints on a slide and then write in the margins. I would always like try to take notes during class. It's going to be too much information. You're not going to be able to write all those notes. I would just do like the PowerPoint, write in the margins, kind of annotate it for yourself. Because if you go to the first class and hits like a 60 slide PowerPoint, you're not going to be taking notes on that. Not effectively. You're just going to be like scrambling to try to get every word that's on the PowerPoint. Take the PowerPoints, annotate them. That's the first change, and then go from there.
Back in my day, you young whippersnappers in your PowerPoint slides, we had none. We were lucky if the professor wrote things on a transparency.
The projectors.
Yeah.
Not a blackboard.
Couldn't even take a picture of that transparency. We had to like take a picture of it with our minds.
This is why you think you're a bad memorizer.
I sometimes wonder, like, could I, like, with the technology we have today, like with Anki Anki, with their like spaced repetition algorithms and all this kind of stuff, like, could I, maybe I could.
No, I do think you could, like everybody could.
Okay.
Dave, I think there's a multiverse in which you are a Nobel laureate. I believe that there is a world in which Dave Etler is a Nobel laureate. And that he had the ability to use Anki, and that's how he got there.
Nice. Well, if it happens that the other universe me is listening right now, and it has
crazy.
They got their Nobel laureate in some physics discipline that allows them to subscribe to podcasts from other universes. Then,
your other you sounds awesome.
Good on you.
Interdimensional podcast network.
Yeah. Nice work.
Yeah.
All right. Have we dealt with that question?
I think so.
Okay.
Do what works for you. That's what it comes down to.
I mean,
that's what like all these questions are going to
really
be. Is like, do what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it.
Yeah, change it. Let's try something else. You know what? The thing is, people always worry like, oh, if I didn't get good grades in that first, you'll do fine, right? If you want to do even better, you could change it up and adjust. But really, when it comes down to like getting your residency, I don't really know that those first 2 semesters are really that important. I think what's more important is probably your grades during clinical clerkships. And I mean, you don't want to fail anything, but or if you do, you want to make it up or whatever, like it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It's one more thing. It's easy to waste energy looking at other people and convincing yourself you're doing it wrong because you're not doing it the way they are.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself doing that, stop.
Do you guys pay attention to YouTube and social media med student influencers at all?
I don't.
Oh, I think Riley might.
No, they'll pop up because TikTok is an algorithm and you can only like avoid them so much. So I look at them with fascination. I don't look at them with like trying to gain something. I thought they were more interesting when I was an undergrad and I was like thinking about going to medical school because I was always so fascinated by like, what is the process like? And I think that's the only way in which it is useful is like, what does a day look like as you're trying to figure out like, is this the right path for me? As a medical student, no, I think it's like, it's not toxic, but it's like, it's the comparison. It's the, what is it? Thief of joy is comparison. Comparison is thief of joy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. I don't know. Philosopher Riley. Can't even remember her
Nice work.
sayings. Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah. So I think it's not so great.
Okay. Next question. I already know that I want to do a competitive specialty, e.g. optho, ortho, derm. What should I be doing in my first year to set myself up for success?
Cure cancer. Kidding.
I honestly don't know.
This isn't one for me to answer.
This isn't one for me to answer either.
I feel like just relax and,
Yeah, that's a good one. Just chill out.
and go shadow those specialties if you want to make sure that's really what you want to do.
Yeah.
good.
Like, don't fail your classes.
Start building relationships,
Yeah.
but with like good intentions, not just feeling like because you have to, but with people you want to because you want to.
Yeah. And you do want to.
Yeah.
I mean,
In the summer, between your first and second year, you can look for research if you're into that kind of thing. Look for research in the specific area you're interested in going into, derm, optho, etc. I think that's about it. All you can do for the first few years.
Other than curing cancer.
Other than curing cancer, yeah, that's really it. Every person who matches into derm has cured cancer.
you guys,
A little known
you
fact.
mentioned research, and I worry that people who hear, oh, research, then I've got to come up with some genius research. So I got to come up with some like really super valuable research that, cures cancer or whatever. Is that true?
My current research is not going to cure cancer at all. I haven't seen a single patient, but I've seen hundreds of patient charts. Like, you're not necessarily going to have to be in a lab doing basic research to be getting research. There's tons of opportunities, and really just look for what you're interested in and faculty who are already doing that. And you'll find a project that doesn't feel like constant work.
But do you feel like the point of doing research is to make some valuable scientific contribution while you're in medical school?
Ooh, that's a tough.
Jeez, that's a deeper question.
Because I
have feelings, but they might be hot takes.
yeah,
You should-
bring it on.
That's what the podcast is for.
I guess, yeah, I feel like a lot of, not necessarily like chart review, but like sometimes there are medical students who are like doing research for the sake of doing research. And I don't think that all of it is like necessarily contributing. Like it might, I guess it depends, right? Because like obviously there's like a physician you're like involved with who thinks it's important and like is telling you to like do this thing for them that they want the information. But I think there's a lot of instances where people are just like doing, like people are like, they'll like find you a project just so you can like have a project for the sake of doing something that you can put on your resume. Does it make a scientific contribution? Will the physician actually use it? Like, who's to say? I don't think that all research is meaningful. I don't know.
I mean, perhaps the point is to just learn how to do research.
Yeah, and that's different, but that doesn't mean that it has a scientific meaningful contribution. It's like a training opportunity, which is valuable to that person, sure.
I think even, I know that, and you guys can, you MD PhD students can.
Well, he already has.
He's a
PhD.
doctor.
Oh,
So.
yeah.
He's a literal doctor.
Well, I was thinking more in when people come to medical school, when you do your PhD phase, like it's a long time. Number one, you're doing something, and hopefully that's important. But sometimes sometimes it just doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe and so sometimes I hear toward the end like, oh, I didn't. My research is garbage.
Well, I think the harder part too is most people in the MD PhD are doing some degree of like basic science research, which is quite different than what probably 90% of medical students are doing when they say they're doing research. I would say most medical students are doing like clinical chart review based research. And please correct me if I'm like super off. And then like maybe 10% are able to get on like a basic science research project that they can continue for the 4 years that they're here. And maybe they'll get a publication out of it. The hard part is when you're trying to do research in medical school, from what I've gathered from friends, it's really the balance between finding a project that you're really passionate about and that will train you really well, or finding a project that is going to get you a publication. Because if you're thinking about competitive specialties, it kind of sucks, but like publications are the currency, like to say that you've really done something and contributed. And should that be the case? No, because you could argue that really good clinical research should probably take longer than a summer that a medical student is able to work on it. However, that doesn't mean that the currency is not weighted that way. For the same reason that STEP shouldn't be weighted as much as it is.
But here's the thing. I mean, if you do a poster presentation, that's a publication. That's a publication.
It counts as something.
It definitely counts.
Application. Yeah. I think in hearing all of this, and I had the experience of last summer, I did one of the summer research fellowships and I did basic science research. And now I am looking more into a project we're looking at how different patients identify themselves in the medical chart, specifically gender expansive patients, because when you have lab tests that have sex specific ranges, it's going to be impacted if you're on hormones or changing your legal sex. And when I was in the basic research mindset, I didn't see as much of the value in the current research. I don't feel like there's scientific breakthroughs, but improving patient care and finding those holes, I think it's different people looking for different things and different kind of research, but it does have value in putting it on your applications. I will go and try to get a publication with this, but I feel like it's getting me the relationships with people who are interested in these things that I am. And right now I find value in that more than curing cancer.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
It's also a tad more realistic.
Yes.
Just a tittle.
Yeah, if you're interested in going into competitive specialties and you see research as a thing you actually really enjoy doing, don't do it if you don't enjoy it. Yeah. Go do humanities projects or volunteering projects. Do not do research if you do not enjoy it. It will not.
It's a bit of a slog.
It's a bit of a slog. Like, it kind of sucks at times. I really enjoy it, but it's also really hard. Another thing for another time. But I think looking at the project that you're choosing, because clinical based research is super important and it is more so in the scope of what you can complete in medical school. Maybe steer clear of the basic science lab that just got the grant that is just getting a project off the ground, because that is going to be just an extra slog and probably not something you can manage to the extent you want to manage it in medical school. You may want to give more time to that project, but you're probably not going to be able to, because basic science research just takes so much longer.
Listeners, if you ask us a question, it means that I don't have to make something up to talk about on the show, and the show becomes what you want it to be. So send your questions to theshortcoats@gmail.com or leave a message at 347-SHORT-CT. We'll talk about it on the show. Next question. How do I make friends in med school? And, corollary, is it a good idea to date my classmates?
These are two fun questions.
How do you make friends in med school? Are med school friends harder to find than normal friends?
No, you suffer together.
I think it's probably easier.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about friends. Okay, you ready? You ready to hear Dave's hot take on friends?
Yeah, what's your hot take on friends?
When you get out of med school, when you get out of college and you get out of med school, it gets a lot harder to find friends.
I can imagine, yeah.
There's just, I don't know, there's just something about like not sharing the same experience every single day that makes it just a little bit harder. I think it's going to be easy to find friends in med school, personally. What do you think?
I do look back on my life, and I think every single friend that I have that is close to me is a friend that was made through going through hard shit together. So therefore, medical school is exactly that. You're going through something really tough together, and therefore you are going to really enjoy each other's company because you're all going through the same hard thing. And I think there's a lot of friendship that comes from commiserating together. So I would argue that a lot of friends are made just like studying together and being in the learning communities and saying, hey, let's grab a drink after this exam, and just like being okay with putting yourself out there. those would be my tips.
I would say that's a prerequisite for making friends is putting yourself out there.
Putting yourself out there. Easy.
I think joining student groups, going and jumping on your school's podcast or something, great ways to meet people and make friends. I mean, most of the people I consider my good friends I've met in this room.
If you're in med school right now and your med school doesn't have a podcast, make a podcast. or quit.
You like hypothetical dates?
Because that's a stupid school. No, I'm just
Quit and come to Carver.
we don't take transfers.
We don't take transfers.
Too bad you made the wrong choice.
What was the other question? Is it okay to date?
Is it okay to date? Is it a good idea?
I don't know if it's a good
classmates?
idea, but I think it's a fine idea. I mean, there's plenty of people in our year who like met each other in medical school and
Or like getting married now.
they're getting married. They're engaged. There's like plenty of people who get engaged and married. Yeah. So I think it's, for them, it was a good idea. For you, who can say, right? Like, we don't know you.
I think for my personal self,
Are you a piece of shit? It might not be great for your med school date, you know?
I feel like I've thought about this a lot, not in the context that I could literally ever do it, because I've been in a relationship for 6 years now and I'm currently married. Regardless, I like think about it because I wonder if it's a good idea, because I had watched my husband who had gone through law school. He had law school friends date. And it seems like maybe this is not the case, but from an outside perspective, and this is all like me just spitballing here, I feel like you'd be talking about medicine like way more than I would ever want to talk about medicine within the confines of when I go home. So I do wonder if like it's not a bad idea, but just like make sure you have boundaries, like that you're not literally only studying together, only talking medicine together. Like that just sounds like bad relationship time. Like
sounds a little boring.
Sounds a little boring.
I was actually thinking about this morning. For what reason, I have no clue. But I came into school engaged as well, so I never once looked at my classmates as potential partners. So it's really weird to sit around and have classmates talking about like, oh, there's only this many single people, or like talking about classmates in that regard, because my brain isn't in that mode.
Yeah.
But this morning I was thinking about how much I would hate for my husband to be in medicine. Like I really value that we're in completely different things. He's in accounting, and somebody I worked for talked about when she was in med school with her husband, and she was always doing great, but he was always doing better.
That's what I was going to say, is the comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. Second time I've said it now.
And I didn't get the vibe that like he would rub it in or anything, but it still made her feel a little less. And I just wouldn't want to deal with that. Some people would probably thrive off of maybe a competitive nature or just feeling like medicine is more of their life, but that's not for me.
Yeah, there's no
married people wondering about the what
I would love to hear from med students who are married to another med students, or med students dating other med students, how they negotiate that. Because my first instinct was just be like, well, just don't talk about it. You know, just like
that's your whole life. What else?
I know, like that's completely unreasonable. Like, you know, what do you do when you get a bad grade? You'd be like,
well, it's like
fine.
Yeah, it's like when I go home to my husband, I'll explain my day. He'll be like, "How's your day?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was good." But then I think about it in my head. I'm like, I don't really want to go into the whole thing, because then I'm gonna have to like explain words and like terms, and then neither of us just talks about each other's jobs. It's great. Like we say, "Day was great." He'll tell me like a little bit about what he was doing, but not much. And I'm like, this is the perfect amount of detail for both of us right now.
All right.
Then we talk about our shows that we're gonna watch. So that's my advice.
I think it's okay to date your classmates.
It's fine.
Date all of them.
Do what you want.
I don't know about that one. I don't know.
Maybe not at the same time.
Hey, it's called networking.
But maybe.
Oh, okay.
Networking, expanding your network. They're all going to be residents in attendance someday.
Oh God.
Wink. Have you dated any classmates, Sahaana? Are you involved?
I'm in a.
Are you involved?
Relationship. Before I even came to med school.
Have you dated any classmates?
No, I'm also in a relationship.
Okay.
So,
right. Wrong question to bring up on this show.
Wrong room.
Okay. Next question. I'm not sure what specialty I want to enter. How do I explore different specialty options? How will I know what's right for me?
Go to school.
That's like, a good one.
Literally go to
med school.
Show up
every day.
attend
Yeah.
interest groups.
Yeah.
I'm in my third year, almost fourth, and I don't know what I'm doing.
But you're in your
Yeah.
PhD phase now. That's like you don't have you can put that off for a long time.
Yeah, I would
But
like.
actually, when you
however,
get back, it's
I
like
would like
bing,
the
now you're
answer
gonna
to
know.
this question because I'm like, how do I explore the different specialties?
Matt, do you have a specialty that you've been thinking about as an M1?
No, I keep my mind open.
Yeah.
That's what every senior classmate told me,
Yeah.
just make sure I had a mentor who's a general surgeon here, but he just said, enjoy everything. And at the end of the day, you'll know.
Yeah.
I hope I will know because I'm also a little anxious, to be honest, like what I want to do. You know?
It's funny. I think there are people who get to that third year when people start talking about, okay, when are you going to be? When are you going to be? When you grow up? When are you going to be? And they're not quite sure. But my experience is that, I don't know, they all match or apply to something.
I feel like most people get to the end of their core year from talking to friends that are going through the process of figuring out what they want to do. They usually get to the end of their core year and are left with hopefully one, maybe two or three that they're really interested in. And then they can start to figure it out from there. I know people right now that are still like 80% sure what they're applying to in a few months, but it's okay to be 80% sure at the end of it. The hope is you get to the end of your core year and you're like, I liked everything. Now you get like more choices, but maybe you'll find that the lifestyle of one appeals to you more than the lifestyle of another. And the older you get, as you do when you're in school for 4 years, you're going to start to realize your priorities shift as you go through it. And so core year is like the perfect time to start to figure out what you're actually doing. And for the listeners, core year is when you do all of your clinical rotations that are
whatever your school has decided are the key ones. Usually primary care,
surgery,
surgery, OB, psych,
Neurology.
peds, neuro. I think in our case.
Now we have ER also.
Yeah.
I think
It
ER.
changed a bunch for every year in the past few years. So
Yeah, they can never leave it alone so that I can remember what those things are. But
Yeah.
I think Riley talking about lifestyle was really important to me because I'll get this inkling, oh, maybe I'd be interested in this, but then I see a little what it's actually like. And I'm like, no way am I going to do this day in and day out forever. And then for me, I walk into where one of the pathology specialties are and I'm surrounded by microscopes and I just feel like I'm in heaven or wherever you're the most euphoric. So you're not going to know unless you get your feet on the ground, and you're not going to have had your feet on the ground before your first day of med school. So
also just, resolve to explore as many options as you can outside the curriculum when you're able to do that. So, if there is a break, ask to shadow somebody in some specialty you've never shadowed before. Even, shadow people who aren't physicians, but who work in that field, nurses, pharmacists, just put yourself out there so that you know what it's like from all angles of that specialty. And just sort of try to take it all in. And I think one thing that sometimes people might make a mistake on is deciding to not go into a specialty because of the people you met in that specialty.
I would love more like experiences about this because it would be so hard for me as a person to be with absolute just crappy people a whole rotation and then also still say, no, I actually really enjoyed the work and I want to go into this, because I would have a hard time.
It's really hard.
Assuming those people are not like that literally everywhere I go.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, like, it's tempting to be like, well, all surgeons are dicks. Mm-hmm. But I mean, clearly that's not the case. I mean, it's not the same everywhere you go, and it's probably not the same even within the department that you rotated in. You probably just got,
or even just the resident you got for that specific week.
Yeah, you probably it was just bad luck.
It's hard though to like parse that apart, because that like colors so much of your experience is like the way people treat you.
I think people make decisions based on that more often than
I think people make decisions on the like. I want to call it like the soft side of those specialties, like the soft skills, like what is happening in the lifestyle, both when you're at work and outside of work. I think that is like way more of a factor for people once they get to their core year than I even thought. I think a lot of people enter medical school and they're like, what am I scientifically most interested in? I think once you finally start to do rotations, you start to realize, who do I actually want to spend every day with? Which patients do I want to spend every day with? Do I want to wake up at this time every day? Or maybe you do because you really like that science. And that's what I've realized over the time that I've been here is the stuff that I do outside of school has become wildly more like important in my brain when I choose which specialty I want to go into. And the people that I spend every day with will matter a lot to me because I want to make sure that I really enjoy like the interactions that I'm having with people, not just going into something for cool science. Because if that was the case, I think everyone would end up in like, I don't know, what's cool science? Neurosurgery, probably pretty cool. I don't know much about neurosurgery, but it's probably pretty neat. And so people don't because people like people and people want their time outside of work.
I just decided I'm going to call pathology pretty science, as long as it's not gross pathology. I don't know if anybody else finds like
pretty pathology,
what you can see under the microscope when it's stained as pretty, but
I think you might be finding just the right thing for you.
I mean, the first time I was on this podcast, you talked about the pathologists alone in a dark room with their microscope. And I was like, I guess I'm going to go into pathology. So
I guess that's exactly where I want to be.
See me in a few years when I'm not in pathology.
Yeah. Because you loved the people on neurosurgery.
Right.
Yeah, also I went to those match panels and then one of the M4s told me a story. She's like, you know, when you choose a specialty, nothing is perfect. You have to deal with the perfect, you know, aspect of it and then the imperfect aspect of it. If you can accept that part, maybe your life won't be too bad.
That is great advice.
I mean, this is kind of advice for anybody. I mean, there is no perfect world that you're going to live in. So, you know, I don't know. Like I always feel that like, love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, you know what? That is totally not true. Shut up.
And that's why I think it's...
Because you can love what you do and still have days where it's like, ugh, I hate this.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like for the person who's asking, how do I figure out which specialty I want to go into in the first couple years? Like, do things outside of medicine. Do you love rock climbing? Well, you're going to need some time off to go rock climbing because you can't do that in Iowa or probably wherever you are. So just figure out what you really enjoy. Do you love travel? Well, make sure you kind of choose and consider that within your considerations. I think exploring life outside and remembering that you're a young person in your 20s trying to enjoy life, like that's going to be
20s.
Well, not everyone's. That's a great point. Thank you so much. Teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, whenever you are, 50s. I don't know how old our oldest medical students are.
I think they're in their 40s, but 40s? You can be any age.
We've had older.
At any age.
Enjoy that time because
Dave's going to be a 50-year-old medical student.
Yeah.
That's right. I keep threatening admissions. I'm like, I'm going to apply one of these days.
I think
then you're gonna have to make a real hard choice.
The thing you were saying in there.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna be like, oh shit.
About though, like, don't stop living just because you're in medical school. Because you can make it through those 4 years and have a lot of success, but you also forgot about 4 years of life outside of it.
Yeah,
and residency's not
exactly. You're gonna have to find some point where you can find a balance. So start now.
Shortcoats, if you're enjoying our conversation today, I'd be grateful if you'd let people know by posting a story on Instagram or Facebook or tweeting about us. And don't forget to tag us in your post.
Thank you.
Where should I live? Should I live with roommates? My family is nearby. Should I live with them? How long of a commute should I have? Do I need a car?
Where are you going to medical school?
Depends where you are.
I mean, there's a lot of questions there.
I feel like if you're paying for medical school, like from loans, and if you have a good relationship with your family, it's like not a terrible idea to save a ton of money and just live with them because loans are paid back with interest. It's not like you took $10,000 out and then now you owe $10,000. That's not how they work. So,
and usually you have to take out more loans for the living expenses. So that could be really great as well.
But obviously everyone's situation is different and like depends on your relationship with your family and how far that is. I think you end up doing more maybe late nights or like weekend study things or like interest groups in the evening, maybe on campus than you might foresee. So having an easy way, either living on a bus route or getting like a weekend pass, or if you do have a car, like somewhere that's drivable, living somewhere drivable or walkable is definitely going to be convenient because you will have like mornings during some clinic rotations where you have to be here at like 5 and like I don't know about where you live, but in Iowa City there's no buses at 5 in the morning.
Also, like for instance, in our family medicine rotation, you could end up like
like 5 hours away.
Yeah, you could end up in some part of Iowa that you didn't anticipate, and so you're going to need a car.
Yeah.
There is one caveat I would say to living with parents, and that's that you are going to need to manage their expectations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel capable of being like, Mom, Dad, here's the thing. You can't bother me.
You can't bother
You
me.
can't bother me.
You have to be able to say no. You got to be really good at boundaries to be able to.
I'm not going to be. I know I live with you, but I'm not going to be able to, go on vacation, and I'm not going to be able to, go visit my sister when you guys are going to go visit your sister. Like those days are over.
Those days are over.
I mean, really, I feel like it's
No, I think that's fair.
Terribly important to manage expectations.
No, you're right.
In that situation.
I think even if you live with a roommate who's not in medical school or not in just a graduate program in general, like if you have a roommate that's just like living their best life working, they have to understand that you can't just go get mimosas on a Tuesday morning.
Also, it makes you sad and jealous to live with someone like that. So I would not recommend.
Do you go get mimosas on Tuesday? That should be part of your plan. Do you go get mimosas on Tuesday morning? Oh, you do? Sorry.
Sorry. You're out.
Yeah.
I think for like where you live, there are a number of married people who have kids who have chosen to live about 20 minutes away because to buy a house in one of the smaller surrounding communities, it was cheaper. And so they choose to do those commutes and you don't have to worry about bus routes at that point.
That is nice.
But it's really going to depend on what school and like your family situation is. Are you a single person who can live at home and tolerate your family? Do you have a new family that you're bringing with you?
Are you living in, I don't know, San Francisco, and maybe there's
5 of you
absolutely no goddamn way you're going to live in, you're going to be able to afford to have your own place and a car and all this kind of stuff while you're in med school.
I think
you're going to suck it up and live with your family.
General thoughts too, like as far as proximity to the school, especially if you're at something like a University of Iowa or generally just like a place where the town itself is essentially like it's surrounded by the college campus. Like it's very much a college town.
Yes.
You're going to have really close access to housing kind of near the medical school, but you also may be kind of surrounded by people who are still in undergrad or graduate school or very much still in the college mindset. Whereas if you want to maybe live a little bit further from the medical school, you might actually, for me, for example, I wanted that separation from school because I wanted to feel as though it was a job. I wanted to be like I could go home and kind of forget the world around me. Whereas if you live closer, it really does still feel like you are in college because of just the housing that is available, usually closer to the school you're going to. So think about that in your brain. Are you okay with still feeling like you're right in the middle of a campus, or would you rather have some of that separation because maybe you've worked in the past and you really want to still see this as a job, or maybe you just like that separation from undergrads in the college campus lifestyle? And because a lot of towns will have sort of 2 tiers, the one that's like college and grad school housing, and then the one that is still young people, but it also may be mixed with maybe some other young professionals.
Yeah, I also wanted to add a story. So I'm an M1. I know one of my classmates, she lives literally 2 hours away from here, and she commutes every day. And the reason is because she just got engaged to her fiance last summer. So by now they've been engaged for a year now. I think they're getting married this summer. But the reason why she wants to commute every day was because she wants to see her fiance.
Sure.
And so it's like
a sacrifice she's willing to make.
4 hours every day spent on road. I don't know how she does it. I think she's doing great, just class-wise, but she did it.
She listens to all her lectures on the drives
Maybe,
from
honestly.
right? That would be good.
Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing that I've heard of as far as living situations go is people buying, condos to live in while they're here and maybe hoping that the market will move such that they actually make money when they leave. I don't know if that's realistic.
This is actually what my family did. My mom saw the price of what I was going to be paying each month for rent when I was originally moving here. And all of a sudden it turned into a business opportunity for her. Ooh. And so she worked with me to pick out a condo here that she bought, and me and my husband pay rent to her for that. Wow. But then you have to manage expectations with family, and you have a guest room, that's my room, or those kind of things. And mixing business and family. So it is a thing I've heard of other people doing, but beware.
I definitely know some other like people who are moving into like family owned condos or something, especially if they're fans of the school you go to. I know a lot of people who are like Iowa fans, and so they like to come to the football games. Again, manage expectations, because that also might mean that they're throwing parties 7 out of the fall Saturdays. Like they might be there every weekend. But I think I would say in the like longer degree programs like the MD PhD, it's pretty common for people to like consider buying condos or houses because they're going to be here for
so long. Yeah.
So long.
10
And
years,
so,
9 years, is
50 years, actually.
100 years.
100 years. And so the market is bound to go up. But I also know some medical students who were proactive and thought about it going into their first years, but do not feel like you have to. That is like not what everyone does. And sometimes it's not a great idea. Like in the past year, it has probably not been the best idea. But
I mean, it's kind of dicey to assume that your real estate is going to is definitely going to increase in value. I mean, you could get to your last year of school and the market tanks, and now you're like, oh well. I mean, it may just be a matter of deciding to pay a mortgage rather than rent. Which one is cheaper? That kind of thing. That's fine. We have not bought our houses thinking that they were going to increase in value. I mean, I don't know. We're not. We ain't no business people.
Also, some medical schools have like medical fraternities that you can live in.
Oh, that's
for,
true.
Like,
Yeah. Like we have, what is it? AKK and FIRO.
Yeah. And I think rent's it's like less than $500 a month, I think.
Yeah. So if you can get into those, that's cool.
I have found definite benefits for my living situation, though, in that we're in a really good location between our families. And so at like holidays and breaks, a lot of people disperse and go back home, and this is home now. It's kind of a weird mindset when I'm like, oh, where's everybody going? Because I'm not going anywhere. But I like that. I like being in one place and not having to pack up every summer.
Well, those are the questions I have. Mao, you're the M1 in the room. Was there a question you had about medical school before you came here?
I guess, I don't know what to expect for M2.
So what is the M2 life like?
Yeah.
Just moving that one step forward.
I didn't make it all the way through the M2 life, so I think
it's more of the same, really.
Yeah, I was gonna say the next semester fall is like literally the same. Just keep doing what you're doing.
And then in our case, we have an 18-month preclinical curriculum. So once you get through the first semester of step 2, then you go into your preclinical years, and then it all changes, and you're doing something completely different. And oftentimes people are like, "This is awesome." when they get to clinics. So
I'm trying to remember what I was scared about going in. Stressed Riley. She had to be stressed about
there was something, right?
There was something that Stressed Riley was stressed about, but for reference, and nobody else would know this, but I've been calling myself Stressed Riley on the podcast for the past few times because I keep describing myself as stressed, even though I'm not. Like I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky person, but it's just the word that I use.
It's all right. It's all right.
High strung.
We have to visit the financial aid office to hear about our sponsor for this episode, Panacea Financial, the bank for doctors by doctors. As a doctor, the average bank isn't built for the medical student community. It just isn't. At Panacea Financial, they get it because they've lived it. As a bank founded by 2 med-peds physicians, they are dedicated to providing solutions for the unique needs of doctors and doctors in training, including their PRN personal loan. Do you have a good way to cover costs of moving for residency or paying for unexpected life costs? Do you want to avoid credit cards or refinance existing or expensive credit card debt? Then check out their PRN personal loan as a way to help. It has up to $15,000 in funding for medical students, a period of no or low affordable payments, and no cosigner requirement. Even if you don't need any of Panacea's medical student loans, you can refer a friend, and Panacea Financial will pay up to $250 for each referral. And there is no limit to how many people you can refer. Join the growing number of medical students nationwide that expect more from their bank and have switched to Panacea Financial. Visit panaceafinancial.com today to learn how a bank for doctors by doctors can help you. Panacea Financial is a division of Primis, member FDIC. Thank you, Panacea Financial, for your support of the Short Code Podcast. Really appreciate it. Always lovely to have you back.
Thanks, Panacea.
Today, I learned about the Hanger Reflex. Have you heard of the Hanger Reflex?
No.
All right. This could blow your mind, or it could be complete hogwash.
Oh, God. Okay.
It's when the pressure of a clothes hanger worn on the head so as to cause pressure on the frontotemporal region causes an involuntary rotation of the head. A 2015 study of 60 Japanese men and 60 Japanese women found that 95.8% of subjects experienced this involuntary movement, mostly rotation toward the compressed side of the forehead. So here's a wire hanger.
Okay.
I was hoping.
And I'm gonna. We're all gonna try this.
Okay.
To see if 95.8%
Of us
experience this.
But I feel like we already know what's happening. I feel like
did we contaminate it? You think?
Yeah.
All right. So this is what you do. You put it on your head like this. So it's like
Okay.
pressing the front.
Your head's bigger
of
than mine.
your-
Will it?
Huh?
Will it shrink back in size?
Are you saying I have a big head?
No, I'm just saying you have a bigger head than me specifically. I have a small head. Anyway, what's supposed to happen?
You're supposed to turn
I think it's
your
supposed
head.
to hurt a little bit.
Does it?
It hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, your head looks like kind of turned that way.
I don't think it's able to put the pressure it's supposed to be having.
What do you mean? That's what.
I don't.
Because my head's too big. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Dave, your head is too big for
Can
that
they see you right now? Can people see you?
I mean,
Now they can.
I don't know if the hanger. Oh God. Well, now that I've demonstrated, you try it, Nicole.
Do we have a video?
Yes. What do you mean,
No.
do we have a
Like,
video?
do we have a
Oh,
video of this happening to
I don't
people?
know. I should probably look up one.
Oh God.
What were the methods of
Someone's
this paper?
gonna poke their eye out. Okay. Is it hurt?
You have to.
It's stretched out, right? He stretched the hanger out to us.
She turned.
The pressure is going to be like on your
Yeah.
frontotemporal.
So maybe like it
Where
has to
is
be
that?
over on the
Here?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel an urge to rotate your head? 95.8% of Japanese people.
5.8. That is so many.
I feel like the pressure of it trying to pull is like actually trying.
Like it's physically
trying to-
moving your head that way. Yeah.
It was like it's at angles like this, but I did not feel just an irresistible desire to turn my head, except for when I really wanted to look at Dave.
Let me try. Oh.
Okay. See
Why
some
would
TikToks.
Who thought of this? And was like, let's put hangers out. This
Apparently,
hurts.
Japanese scientists. Or is this just?
I'm looking for relatively short video.
Oh, I feel like I think I understand because it's like pushing on the back like this. So it feels like I should be going like this, but I don't like.
It's creating like a
have to.
rotational feel around you.
Exactly. It's like kind of almost like tugging my head this way.
Let's look at this video.
Okay, I'm gonna take this off.
The hanger challenge, I guess is what you call it. But according to science, for some reason, if you put a hanger on your head,
Okay, she
your head
just moved her head. She just
involuntarily will
purposefully.
turn. Oh my god, it's like the hanger challenge, I guess
Yeah,
is what you call it. But according
Oh,
Doesn't
it
it feel
does
like it's,
feel
like,
like
tugging
it.
on
It
your
really
head?
does feel like I want to move that way. Like when I move that way, I feel like a relief versus when I move that way, it just like is more pressure.
Yeah, because it's just literally like pulling on your head.
Like it's literally just like a muscle thing.
Well, yes.
Oh.
I mean, muscles do help move bodies.
Dave, I didn't need the sass right now.
See, I'm going to be a med student.
You got
Muscles,
it.
muscles help move bodies.
Wow.
Do they?
They do.
I heard muscles don't exist.
I think that's
Do you
T
feel it?
cells don't exist.
No.
T cells don't exist.
I just feel something squeezing in my head.
Yeah. But it's like it's squeezing at like two opposing
Yeah.
points. So it almost feels like, yeah, to relieve the pressure, you want to like move in one
Now the
direction.
diagram from the study shows like you guys are wearing it like basically left to right, but the diagram I saw has the hanger rotated
Okay.
such that it's pushing
I
on.
thought I had it kind of like this.
Yeah, you did. I do see where it's coming from. I don't think it's
The way that
fact.
she turned her head, she
did
fully was just like,
no.
oh, whoa.
Like also, this is like assuming we have the neck strength of like a baby. Like we have neck strength. Like we can
overcome it.
Overcome this reflex of this hanger.
Did this become a famous challenge and then they decided to do a whole study on it? Or do you think it was the other way around?
I
a bunch of
assumed
adults
it was some
hangers on their head.
scientists who were like, "Hey, let's put a hanger on people's head because we just want to with people."
Yeah,
Like,
what was the impetus?
How many of these trends are just like, okay, we're going to get 3 people to act like it does this really dramatically, and then we're going to have millions doing it?
Yeah, this does kind of seem a little bit like TikTok came up with it first rather than...
Remember we were talking about research and meaningful scientific contributions? Like, what was the point of this study?
Can you imagine the med student who came up with this,
You're on your neuro rotation and you're just trying to shove a hanger on someone's head just to see if they have this reflex?
You're at home feeling really sad about your life and you're like, put this hanger on my head. Hey, look at that.
For anyone that tries this, I think a more reasonable response would be like, yeah, I kind of feel like I want to move my head this way, but like you're not going to
partially because I'm it's partially because I'm in pain and want it to go away.
Exactly.
You're not going to get whiplash from this.
All right, well, let it be known that the Shortcoat Podcast debunks solidly debunks the hanger on the head.
Should we write a paper?
Yes.
That'd be on your primary application.
We were unable to replicate this.
Reproducibility is important.
If anyone wants to write this paper, put me as a co-author.
Yes, you must put the Shortcoat Podcast as a co-author.
It's actually just
not
podcast,
Riley,
Shortcoat.
Speaking of social media, I missed this story on Medscape at the end of March, but it's worth talking about, I think. A Wake Forest University School of Medicine student was placed on leave after tweeting that she had unnecessarily stuck a patient with a needle during a blood draw to make a point about transgender rights. The student was wearing a pin that indicated her preferred pronouns while she was doing a blood draw. The patient, as patients sometimes do, made a comment about the pin to the effect that it was ridiculous to specify pronouns. The tweet, now deleted, said, quote, "I had a patient I was doing a blood draw on, see my pronoun pin, and loudly laughed to the staff. She, her? Well, of course it is. What other pronouns even are there? I missed his vein, so he had to get stuck twice." So that was the tweet. The implication here is that the student retaliated by sticking the patient twice.
For some reason, I thought they took the pin off and stuck them with the pin.
That's what I was thinking. That they were about to give a vaccine, took the cap off, took a needle. No, I now understand.
No, their pronoun pin. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
It's a full nother level though. Like what we're talking about. This person deciding that they're going to make a point and purposefully miss and stick twice. And then a whole other level to think it's a good idea to go on Twitter and talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing.
A couple things, yeah.
It turns out that after investigation by Wake Forest, that's not actually what happened. The first attempt to draw blood was unsuccessful, as can happen with people who are learning how to draw blood. So the supervising clinician took over, hence the second, the second attempt. The intent of the tweet, as the student admitted, was to highlight the bad karma of the patient who was being unnecessarily. And yet the student was still suspended, I suppose, while they investigated or something like that. Yeah. Because the tweet really does make it seem like
they did.
You can't ignore that implication.
I mean, that's kind of like.
But people miss all the time. even people full
I don't even think I'd know enough to know to miss purposely. I know it's probably the most likely scenario, but I wouldn't be able to do it on purpose.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't. Yeah, that's so hard. I do think the moral of the story is maybe don't tweet things.
Yeah, I think you zeroed in on it.
Patients should be better. Don't be a dick. But also understand that people are probably not going to be the best that you're going to come in contact with in medicine. And part of the job is to let it roll off your shoulders.
Yes. I think it's probably a case of I wrote this tweet in a hurry. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I thought it clearly said one thing and yet it was misconstrued.
This is a great lesson. And also some self-awareness to know that not everything needs to be tweeted. And this is still a professional world. And tweeting about things can come back.
There are a lot of doctors tweeting a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, because I know, years ago, there was, of course, a lot of reluctance to be on social media by physicians. And nowadays that doesn't seem to be as much the case. I mean, I'm sure there are many people who would rather not be on social media. And that's, sometimes I would rather not be on, actually all the times I would rather not be on social media, but unfortunately that's my life now. But the point is, like, you don't have to. You don't have to tweet that thing that you think is really clever. You don't have to do that.
You probably could have had a lesson from it. Like, my patient made fun of the pronouns, and that is unfortunate and sometimes something we have to deal with in the world, and maybe leave out the second part. Because I think it's fair to bring attention to it, that there's a lot of people that are, like, rightly so putting pronouns now on their badges. Like, I think that's awesome. But they also have to be aware that some people are going to make comments about it. So I think that tweet alone is bringing awareness to people who are probably going to have similar situations. Leave out the second part.
I think it would have been much more impactful if you had that first part and then a story about a patient who, like, was positively impacted by seeing them.
Yeah.
Or you could, as you have already observed, just say to that patient, well, I'm not really interested in talking about that.
Yeah.
At all. I don't know.
Or I feel like I would be like, well, they're important to me and important to a lot of other people. So.
Well, look, that's our show. Mao, Riley, Nicole, Sahaana, thank you for being on the show with me today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And what kind of ding dong would I be if I didn't thank you, Shortcoats, for making us a part of your week? If you're new here and you like what you heard today, follow our show wherever fine podcasts are available. It's in a number of places: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Our editors are Maddie Wallin, and then that's it. The show is made possible by a generous donation by Carver College of Medicine student government and ongoing support for the Writing and Humanities program. Member music is by Dr. Vox and Catmosphere. I'm Dave Etler saying, don't let the bastards get you down. Talk to you in 1 week. Hi, Shortcoats. Look, life in medical education, life in America, life in the world is often difficult, and I often wish I could help. All I have is this podcast, but in my wildest dreams, you have the support you need to lead a life of your choosing. You deserve to be happy, healthy, and successful in whatever ways you define those words. So if you need support because you've experienced racism, discrimination, harassment, mental health crises, I want you to be able to get the help that you need. And so I'm going to put some links in the show notes to some resources that you can use. But the bottom line is that, for what it's worth, I see you. I know you're out there. I wish I could do more. Maybe I can in ways that I don't understand yet or know about. But I see you, and I'm glad you're here, and other people are too.